Someone say, "I was just trying to help," and you felt like yelling, "Well, just please stop helping." How many of you had that experience? Good people with good intentions often end up in painful conflicts, not because they're bad, but because they misunderstand each other. Misunderstandings around intentions and the impact of those intentions are among the most common and damaging errors we make in relationships. Laurie and Leo are at a party, and Laurie goes back for some more ice cream, and Leo says, "How about laying off the ice cream?" Yeah, he actually said that. And Laurie was embarrassed. Leo thought he was helping. The argument that followed wasn't about the dessert, it was about assumptions. Laurie assumed Leo meant to shame and control her. Leo explained he wasn't trying to hurt her, but to support her. Here's what often happens. We confuse impact with intent. Our minds fill in the blanks. We fill in motives we can't see. And when we do, we usually fill them in with the worst possible explanation. Laurie felt embarrassed. Therefore, she assumed Leo intended to hurt her. And don't we all do this sometimes? We say, "I felt hurt, so you must have meant to hurt me. I felt dismissed, so you must not respect me." The truth is, we don't know other people's intentions. We don't know. All we know is how has it impacted us. But the human heart makes that leap. Impact equals intent. And that leap is what wrecks so many conversations. Margaret had hip surgery. She went in for a follow-up appointment and was told the surgeon had extended his vacation time and she had to reschedule. Angry, she imagined the surgeon and his wife or girlfriend laying on a beach somewhere in Tahiti. Well, later on, when the surgeon got back and she said, "How's your vacation?" He told her, "Well, it was a working vacation. I was in Bosnia setting up a hospital." Well, she felt much better once she knew why he wasn't there for her appointment. We rarely guess charitably, but we could. We could consider other options of what might be going on in the other person. This is why James in chapter 1, verse 10 says, "Let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger." Imagine the difference in our relationships if our first draft was, "There's probably more going on than I can see." And we could ask for clarification. That one move could save a marriage or friendship, even a workplace team. I had an experience once when I was seeing this lady who I really liked. We were talking frequently. And all of a sudden, she wasn't returning my calls. And I thought, did I say or do something? She upset about something? The worst part was feeling like I'd been ghosted, possibly. I thought, gee, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. The feeling that maybe, why not talk to me about what's up? And then I paused, and I thought, that's not like her. What are the other possible reasons? Maybe it's her phone. Her phone's not working. being a single woman, maybe something happened. Maybe something happened. I got concerned. And then I learned that indeed it was her phone. Her phone was not working, and she had tried other ways of reaching me. Boy, was I relieved. She still liked me. Intentions and pausing to consider. We don't really know what's going on. 1 Corinthians 4, verse 5 says, "Therefore do not pronounce judgment before the time." The verse goes on to communicate that God will bring to light the things now hidden in darkness and will disclose the purposes of the heart. This means we don't really know what's going on. It means we don't really know the intentions completely or the motives of another person. They don't even understand their own motives a lot of times. This means we don't have to. This means we can trust the process of God being in charge ultimately and revealing to us that which we need to know, if and when we need to know it. We can do that. So what do we do when people misread us, or when our good intentions still land badly? We can't control another person's reactions, but we can control ours. The question becomes, will we simply reflect what's around us, or will we choose how to respond? I once worked in a deli, and this guy came in, and I said, "How are you today?" He said, "The weather's horrible." I said, "Well, how are you doing?" "Didn't you hear me? The weather's terrible, and I'm feeling awful." You see, this person was letting the weather determine his attitude. When it was hot, his temperature, he was like a thermometer. If it's hot outside, his temperature went up. If it's cold, his temperature went down. But you and I can be like thermostats. We can regulate our own internal temperature by learning how to choose how we're going to respond to the situation rather than reacting. It might be just checking in to see, how am I taking what that person just said? How am I feeling about what's going on? Or taking some other action. But we always have a choice. We can be more like thermostats. Because here's the truth. We can't control how other people will judge us. We can't guarantee that our good intention won't have a painful impact. No matter how much we want our intention to have a positive impact, it doesn't always land positively. But we can decide not to let it define us, or whether we'll respond with humility and grace. When someone says, "Why did you hurt me?" they're really saying two things. First, they're saying, "I think you meant to hurt me." Secondly, they're saying, "I'm hurting. I'm hurting." If we only defend ourselves against the first, we miss the second, and our conversations stall. What if Leo, instead of saying, "Honey, I was only trying to support you on your diet," instead of that, and then thinking the matter was settled because he told her his intention, what if he skipped over being defensive and instead said, "Wow, that must have really hurt you"? How do you think that might have changed the conversation? Acknowledging how she felt. Because just simply being told, "Well, that wasn't my intention, honey," it's not going to make all that pain go away. Here's the truth stated in the book, Difficult Conversations. Good intentions don't sanitize bad impact. Good intentions don't sanitize bad impact. "Oh, honey, I didn't mean to hurt you." Well, The bruise is still there, even if the blow wasn't deliberate. A father misses his son's basketball game. He didn't mean to hurt him. He explained, "I don't mean to hurt you, son, but I got to work." But the message his son received was, "You're not my top priority." It's not enough to say, "I didn't mean it." A wiser path is, "I can see that what I did hurt you. I'm sorry for that. Can I explain what I was trying to do?" The response shows humility and opens connection. Repair means acknowledging the bruise before explaining the motive. So how do we move forward? First, disentangle impact and intent. Ask yourself 3 questions. I just held up 4 fingers, but ask yourself 3 questions. What happened? What was the impact? And what intent am I assuming? Secondly, share the impact, not an accusation. Instead of, "You embarrassed me on purpose," try, "That comment embarrassed me. I wondered if you meant to hurt me." 3, listen past accusation to the feeling. Behind "you wanted to hurt me" is usually "I'm hurting and wondering if I matter to you." 4, admit mixed motives. Intentions are rarely pure. Owning that complexity builds trust. Most of us want to help, but we also want to save face. We love and we feel embarrassed. Our motives are mixed. Likely, Leo wasn't only concerned about Laurie's weight, helping support her. He probably was also a little embarrassed by her behavior. He admitted that he also was a little bothered by her being out of control. He had mixed motives. By actually taking the time and doing the hard work of looking at what were my true motives is a deposit in the other person's emotional bank account. It tells them, "I matter enough to you that you'll take the time to actually discern what your real motives are." That's how important I am to you. Number 5, hold your story as a hypothesis, not as a verdict. Say, "Here's what I assumed," but is that true? This simple shift from accusation to inquiry changes the whole dynamic. So let's take a moment to practice. Let's have a pause now. Think of a friction, a recent friction in your own life. And ask yourself, what was said? What was the impact on me? And what intent am I assuming about that? What intent am I assuming about that? Everybody have something? Good. Now, shape it into one sentence. Imagine speaking to this person. When you said blank, I felt blank. I wondered if you meant blank. Can we talk about that? This is the impact intent pause. Hold that sentence in your mind and imagine the conversation going well. It's no guarantee, but it's a way of trying to bridge and heal. That's how relationships can heal. A number of years ago, a newsroom was experiencing racial strife among its workers. African American and Hispanic reporters complained about the absence of minority voices at the editorial level, and even threatened to organize a boycott unless practices changed. In response, the executive editors met behind closed doors to consider what to do. No minority staffers were invited to the meeting. When the minority reporters learned of the meeting, they were outraged. One said, "They're telling us once again our voices don't matter." There was anger, but beneath the anger was a deep sense of grief and exclusion, an old wound being reopened. When one of the white editors heard how upset people were, she felt wrongly accused. She quickly sought to clarify. "I can see why you felt excluded, but that wasn't our intention. It was simply a meeting of editors trying to figure out the next step for how to include minority voices." Her explanation mattered, but it wasn't enough. The impact remained. People felt excluded. That kind of impact takes time and intentional work to heal. This story illustrates our theme. Good intentions don't sanitize painful impact. Repair begins not with defending motives, but by naming the bruise first. Only then can trust begin to be rebuilt. Think of a time where you recently felt excluded. Maybe at work, maybe in your family, or even at church. What was the impact on you? Did you immediately assume the worst intentions? How might the conversation have changed if someone had acknowledged your feelings first? Even in emails or texts, how often do we misinterpret tone? A short reply, "Fine," can sound dismissive when it may just mean the person was rushed. Our assumptions fill in the gaps. What if instead we paused and asked, "I'm not sure how to read that. Can you clarify what you meant by fine?" This simple step could prevent days of tension. This teaching isn't just relational, it's deeply spiritual. God alone sees the heart. When we rush to assign motives, we step into God's role. We start playing God. Humility means holding our assumptions lightly and choosing grace. It means not trying to read another person's mind. It means we're not that smart or spiritual. Jesus could read thoughts. Yogananda could read thoughts. Once in a while, you and I can read a thought. Someone says, "Wow, I was just thinking that." And we go, "Oh, that's cool." Jesus and Yogananda, you don't have to say, "I was just thinking that." They know. Until we're there, we'd be better off not trying to. People often leap from "they had bad intentions" to "they're a bad person." That's why Jesus warned, "Judge not, lest you be judged." Matthew 7, verse 1. Maturity is not mind reading. It's humility. It's leading with compassion. It's letting truth do its slow, healing work. Let's become people who hold assumptions lightly, listen deeply, and repair quickly. When we do, our relationships will be enriched, our communities will heal, and our hearts will find more ease. And so it is. Amen. Let's give a special thanks to our musicians today, Eddie Watkins Jr. and Safi Lynn. Thank you so much. A reminder, we've got a prayer circle with Justin Morley right after the service for a few minutes right here. And then at 1 o'clock, a soulful conversation, in person only, downstairs in our fellowship area, what we call Sangha space. And feel free to come on down for coffee, tea, snacks, even if you're not going to be part of the soulful conversation. Come down and interact with folks downstairs following the service. Thank you for joining us in person this morning and joining us online. We appreciate you, and it's always wonderful to share with like-minded people the truth that makes us free. Please join me now for the prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Yea, God, and yea, you. God bless you.